everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Team Daddy Weekly Recap. I am your host, Shapiro the Hero, aka Daddy Dreidels. With just 3 weeks remaining in the regular season, Week 12 saw 3 teams clinch playoff spots, and we had an interesting lineup choices based off the injury report. We also saw some pretty serious movement in the back half of the standings, meaning the last 2 weeks will bring the playoff race down to the wire. As always, I'll take you around the league looking at scores and standings, but first, a word from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Pamper Swaddlers. Whether you are welcoming a new addition to your family or just shitting the bed during a playoff push, Pamper Swaddlers are here to clean up your messes while surrounding you in comfort, because Lord knows you won't get it from anywhere else in the league. As always, we'll start things off with our matchup of the week. This week's matchup of the week featured Brett taking on Swans in a battle of 7 and 4 teams. And to everyone's surprise, well, almost everyone, Brett kept his magical season going, defeating Swans 234 to 157.38. Brett actually scored the most points in the league this week, led by the week's highest scoring player in Josh Jacobs with 62.3 points. Brett got production from up and down his lineup, helping him be one of the first teams to clinch a playoff spot. Swans was led by captain Josh Allen with 53.18 points, but ran into the buzzsaw of Brett's team and took a tough L. At 7 and 5, Swans can still clinch a playoff spot this week with a win over Armenti, while 8 and 4 Brett will try to grab a share of first place when he takes on Zach. Speaking of Zach, he dropped a heartbreaker this week, losing to Armenti 146.3 to 145.7, a defeat of just 0.6 of a point. Armenti was led by Zay Jones and Christian Watson, who combined for 62.5 points. Even with Cooper Kupp on IR, Armenti stole a win and improves to 5 and 7 on the season. Zach almost completed the comeback on Monday night, as Jalen Hurts led the way for the big dogs with 39.35 points. However, Zach did win $10 for having Nick Folk as the highest scoring kicker of the week with 15 points. Now at 5 and 7, Zach will try to keep that playoff hope going in Week 13 as he takes on Brett, while 5 and 7 Armenti will try to make a late playoff push of his own against Swans. Before we get into our next matchup, I would like to pause and take an opportunity once again to congratulate Steve and Roe on the announcement of their daughter coming in June. This will now make 6 true daddies before the start of next season. Steve, I know the rest of the league will join me in wishing you all a very safe, happy, and healthy pregnancy for mom, dad, and baby. With that being said, Steve did fall victim to the league's hottest team this week, losing to PJ 162.5 to 133. The Kabish was led by captain James Conner with 37.5 points, and PJ also got 26.6 points from Patrick Mahomes. Cheese was led by his quarterback Derek Carr with 29.75 points, outscoring Mahomes, who he loaned to PJ last week. Now at 3 and 9, Cheese is fighting to stay out of last place and avoid an automatic place in the toilet bowl. PJ, on the other hand, has now won 4 in a row and will look to make it 5 this week against Josh in our matchup of the week, while Cheese will take on George in Week 13. Speaking of brother to you, George seems to have been distracted by his adventures at Disney this week, as he lost to Josh 204.65 to 136.65. To be fair, Josh did have the second most points in the league this week, but forgetting to take out an injured player well before kickoff is always an embarrassing moment that needs to be called out. Josh was led by a trio of 30-point scorers in Justin Herbert, Miles Sanders, and Justin Jefferson, as he also clinches a playoff spot with his big win this week. George was led by Chris Godwin with 34 points, and he also got 26.6 points from Lamar Jackson. However, George falls to 7 and 5 and misses out on locking up a playoff berth. He will try again to do so this week against Cheese, while Josh will try again to take hold of first place when he takes on PJ in our matchup of the week. Turning to that battle for first, I was able to hang on to the top spot for now, as I defeated Kyle 159.35 to 91.3. I was led by the newly acquired Kyler Murray with 31.15 points, and I also got 25 points from my keeper Austin Eckler. Thanks to an overall balanced team, I was also able to clinch a playoff spot this week. Kyle was led by Daniel Jones and A.J. Dillon, both of whom scored 17.8 points. However, Kyle has now lost 5 in a row, and at 3 and 9 seems destined for that auto bid to the toilet bowl. He will try to right the ship this week against Jed, while I sit atop the standings at 9 and 3, going into my Week 13 battle with Big John. And speaking of Big John, our final matchup of the week saw the league's tallest member taking on the ugliest. Just kidding, buddy. although he only outscored 2 other teams this week, Jed was able to get the win 112.55 to 108.5. Led by Brian Robinson with 25.5 points, Jed got back into the win column and currently holds the final playoff spot over Big John himself. John was led this week by Joe Burrow with 22.7 points, but the injury to Travis Etienne, combined with subpar production from the rest of his lineup, cost him the victory. Now at 5-7, John will try to get back into the playoff position when he and I face off this week, while 6-6 Jed will try to stay in a playoff spot as he takes on Kyle. Here are the league standings as of week 12. I still hold the top spot at 9-3, followed closely by Josh and Brett at 8-4, while all 3 of us have already locked up playoff spots. George and Swans are both 7-5 and currently in 4th and 5th places respectively. They can both clinch a playoff spot of their own this week with a win. At 6-6, PJ and Jed round out our teams currently in playoff position. Big John is in 8th and Zach is in 9th, both at 5-7 and currently in the purgatory positions where they will neither be in the playoffs nor the toilet bowl. Armenti is in 10th, also at 5-7, but he is just over 26 points behind Zach to avoid the toilet bowl. Cheese is currently in 11th at 3-8 and will most likely be playing to avoid said toilet bowl, while Kyle is in 12th, also at 3-8, but stuck in a 5-game losing streak and looking like a lock for last place. With just 2 weeks to go in the regular season, we're shaping up to have an exciting finish. This week, 2 more teams can clinch a playoff spot with a win, while 2 other teams can be eliminated with a loss. The matchup of the week this week is Josh versus PJ, which will have major playoff implications across the league. And with a loss by both Brett and Josh, I would be able to lock up that first round bye if I win this week. Make sure to check your lineups and use the waiver wire to your advantage. Thank you as always for watching. This has been your Team Daddy Weekly Recap. I am Daddy Dreidels, and I will see you next time. L'chaim, motherfuckers!